It's easy to feel good about yourself when things are going well, when you're performing, staying disciplined, hitting your goals, and following through on your commitments. And if you stumble a little, you can still be patient and kind with yourself. But that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the moments when things really fall apart. When you miss the mark again, when you break a promise to yourself, when you feel behind, disappointed, or quietly ashamed, and you don't know how to recover. In those moments, self-compassion is needed the most. And yet for most people, it's completely inaccessible. And instead of care, what shows up is the pressure to fix it, or the numbness to not feel it, or a harsh inner voice telling you that you don't even deserve kindness because you failed. If this feels familiar, it's not just you. It's a pattern I see over and over again in people who are high-performing, self-aware, and genuinely trying to grow. And while you're trying to be kind with yourself, here's a piece that you're likely missing. Compassion is a state of being, not something you do. It arises naturally when certain psychological and physiological conditions are met. So the catch is, the harder you try to do self-compassion, the more you pull yourself away from the very conditions that it requires. My name is Shu. I work with thoughtful, capable people who hold themselves to high standards, but become their own worst enemies when things don't go as planned. In this video, I'm going to show you 4 common ways that self-compassion gets blocked. Not because you're unaware or not trying, but because your nervous system is doing exactly what it's trained to do under pressure. All right, let's get into the first blocker. So let's say you had an interview that didn't go the way you hoped, or a date fizzled out, or you fell out of a routine that you really cared about. These can be painful experiences, and the more you care, the more they hurt. But for a lot of people, the response isn't to slow down and feel and process that pain. Their default response is to stay outcome focused. Get back on it. Push harder. Don't dwell. Turn the pain into fuel, into motivation. And this is especially common if you've been rewarded in your life for discipline, resilience, and results. For a lot of high performers, this started early in life. For example, in school, if you were praised for academic excellence, or in sports, being tough and resilient, pushing through difficulty and pain and challenge, or in the workplace, having a lot of tenacity and delivering on time no matter how difficult it was. And so your nervous system learns something very early, that for momentum matters more than how you feel. And so in this state, emotions aren't wrong, they're just irrelevant. And from here, self-compassion never really even enters the picture. It just feels unnecessary. Or many people intentionally use that emotional discomfort to push themselves even harder. They live with this mentality of no pain, no gain. And this is what I mean by performance-driven state. And the reason compassion doesn't land here is simple. The system is organized around motion, not care. And there's this belief that I'm going to sacrifice my current happiness in order to obtain a future reward. That if I'm hard on myself now, that in the future, things will be better. That I'll be kind to myself after I get across the finish line. But the problem is it's not sustainable. Eventually, this strategy stops working. Pushing harder just creates more tension, more anxiety, more exhaustion. And furthermore, when we solely focus on productivity and achievement, we're ignoring these other aspects of life that make life enjoyable. For example, our relationships, our health, our mental well-being, our joy, our creativity, and play. Without a balance of rest, recovery, and care, this endless cycle of pushing and striving leads to burnout. And this is usually the moment people finally turn inward and think, okay, something is wrong and I need to fix this. And this is where self-compassion usually comes in. But it's coming from a place of viewing that there's a right and wrong way to feel in a certain situation. And this is what I call fix-it mode. People start saying things like, I should be nicer to myself, or I need to calm down, I need to relax. Let me do some self-compassion practice so I can get back on track. On the surface, it looks healthier, but underneath, the relationship hasn't really changed because the emotion is still being treated as a problem, something to manage, something to correct, something to get rid of. Because the underlying belief is that how things are right now is not good enough. That how I'm feeling right now is not how I should be feeling. So you might be saying things like, you did your best, everything's going to be fine, be kind to yourself, it'll all be okay, don't stress out. But the attitude here is that feeling stressed, feeling afraid, feeling anxious is not appropriate. And that there is this ideal state of calm and peaceful, and that is what we ought to be striving for. And if this is something that you do, I want to just assure that there's nothing wrong with you. This is often how people talk to each other in the world. If you notice a child feeling upset, that's what many adults try to do to comfort that child. They say, hey, sweetie, don't worry about that. It'll be okay. Don't need to cry. Everything's going to be all right. But what it does is that it minimizes that child's experience in the moment. And because the adult has power over the children just appease the adult by ignoring their own internal experience and essentially suppressing it. And that's how we learn that this is the state that I'm supposed to feel, and that those other distress states are wrong. And then we grow up treating ourselves and others in this way, perpetuating the cycle. But what compassion really requires is an honest meeting of that real experience, of being with that discomfort, of being with that pain, and not trying to push it away, not trying to change it. And the beautiful part is that when we honestly just sit with those experiences, eventually they go away on their own. But it requires a certain level of vulnerability, to be willing to open our hearts to feel what's actually present. And when we don't go to that level of depth, that's when self-compassion often feels forced. It feels hollow, or like it doesn't work. And when we feel like our efforts in self-compassion aren't working, something else starts to happen. We start to internalize that as our fault. Now there's not just the original disappointment or failure, there's shame. Shame about burning out, shame about struggling, shame about needing compassion at all. And shame can be extremely painful. It can cause us to collapse, withdraw, isolate, and dissociate. So even in this moment right now, I'm feeling some self-consciousness about my delivery of this content in this video. And I can notice myself tightening up and contracting around how I might be perceived. And there's a part of me that's trying to control my presentation, my delivery, the things that I'm saying in a way that I'm hoping comes across as professional or well-spoken, articulate, well-studied, right? Like I want to be perceived that I know what I'm talking about. But that contraction, that effort is actually making me more closed off and disconnecting me from my authenticity. What I really actually need in this moment is to self-connect, is to slow down, to breathe, to pause, to feel what's actually my experience. And honestly, me naming it in this way feels really vulnerable. There's also the truth. And by shedding light on the truth, by not hiding anymore, I'm dispelling the shame. I'm bringing it into conscious awareness. I'm bringing it into the light. And when I do that, I am feeling more warmth. I am feeling more compassion for myself. There's a larger sigh of relief, internal spaciousness. And what I also want to share is that performance and self-compassion, self-empathy, they're not opponents. They can actually be complementary forces. That when we use compassion and empathy to self-connect, that there is this innate sense of safety that we feel now. Like, okay, it's okay if I fail. It's okay if I make a mistake. It's okay if I don't come across as perfect. Because I trust that no matter what I do, that there is a sense of self-acceptance, or just acceptance in general. And this actually goes back to attachment theory. One of the core functions of secure attachment is to provide a sense of safety for a child to go out into the world and to explore and to take risks, because they know that no matter what, they have security to come back to. And when we don't have that, then we try to limit ourselves. We limit our risk-taking to what we perceive to be safe. And when we have a high degree of shame and self-consciousness, it is completely debilitating and prevents us from taking any action towards the goals that we actually want. And so what do we do when the shame becomes so intense that we can't bear it anymore? We numb out, we dissociate, we distract ourselves. So this is when we turn to things like scrolling, food, porn, work, anything that takes us away from the discomfort of our internal world and places our attention on something external. Because our system is saying, danger, danger, there's so much pain, we can't deal with this, let's do anything to not feel this. And so if this is something that you're going through, I want to acknowledge and normalize it. Not only is this a common and universal pattern, there is a valid explanation for it. That your system is literally just trying to protect you from pain. You're not wrong for having shame. And in fact, by acknowledging that you have shame, you start to alleviate shame because you're bringing it into the light. You're bringing it into conscious awareness. And when you do that, it gives you room for self-connection, self-acceptance, and self-compassion. But when we engage in these distracting behaviors, when we engage in these patterns that we judge ourselves for, we only exacerbate the pain down the road. It may feel better in the moment, but moments after, days after, we feel worse about our choices. And we blame ourselves for not being strong enough, not disciplined enough, not whatever enough. So then what's the alternative? I have to go harder. I have to be more disciplined. I have to be more structured. I have to be stronger. I have to use more willpower. And then we repeat this cycle of, it doesn't matter how I feel. The only thing that matters is the end result. The only thing that matters is my performance. The only thing that matters is that I don't do this again. And again, I say this not to impose a value judgment, rather to just give an explanation for what's happening. And through that awareness and understanding, I hope that it gives you a chance to see that this is just a tragedy, that this is a real moment of suffering. This is a real moment of pain, not only for you, but for so many people in the world. So many people are going through. And to feel that pain, to grieve and to mourn. And this is compassion. This is acceptance. This is empathy. Our ability to grieve, to mourn, to meet what is the pain with honesty. And this is how we break the cycle. One of my favorite movies, The Matrix, there's actually one scene that doesn't get talked about a lot. Neo first is picked up in the car. They're about to pull the bug out of him. But he says, F this, I'm out of here. Trinity stops him before leaving. They pan over to the street, and she says, you've been down this road. You know what's down there. And I believe that's actually the moment that shifts everything. It's the moment that he looked down the path that he'd been on for a very long time and knew that it was a dead end for him. And that's the moment he decided, I'm going to go see where this other path takes me. And the other path The alternative is to not do more. It's not effort. It's to not resist, to not fight what is here. And instead, to take your courage, to take your strength, and meet yourself with vulnerability and honesty. To slow down a little bit at a time, to feel and notice what's present exactly as it is without trying to change any of it. And I want you to trust that compassion, understanding, empathy, love, these are qualities of life that exist, that they're not something that you have to strive for. They're not something that you have to earn. These are energies in life that you can simply receive through being open. Because when I say be kind to yourself, you don't need to be taught how to do that. You know how to do that. When you see someone suffering, especially someone who's innocent, a child, an animal, your heart automatically feels compassion for them. You know how to do this. What's actually preventing it from naturally arising in yourself and towards yourself is defensiveness towards fear, shame, and discomfort. And so you don't need more tips, you don't need more tricks. It's about trust, allowing, and letting go of those defenses. And believe that you are enough, that you don't have to strive so hard anymore. And with that, I will see you in the next video. In the meantime, I'm going to post some links down below. There's going to be a resource, a one-pager that summarizes all of these key points that I've talked about in this video, so you can have as a cheat sheet. In addition, I'll include a link where you can book a call with me if you want to talk about what's happening in your life and get some support. All right, take care. Bye.